And good morning once again, everybody. I'm John Eves, and welcome to another edition of Meet Cortland County. Our guest today is Leslie Danks Burke from beautiful Ithaca, New York. Leslie, one down, another one to go. Primary-wise, you are a Democratic candidate for the new 52nd District of the New York State Senate.
Well, good morning, John. So great to be here. Thank you. Yes, running in the 52nd State Senate District.
Let's talk about the 52nd. It's a nice district. At least it seems like it's closer to Cortland than the past Senate districts we've had.
Well, the wonderful thing is that Cortland is the center of this district now. It's a community of interest. We have Cortland County, Tompkins County, and most of Broome County. So you've got a few small cities and a lot of rural areas in between. I think it's a district that has a lot of people with a lot of common interests, and I'm excited to run to represent it.
You are a professor of law at Cornell, and you've been in New York for over 20 years. What reason did you decide to throw your hat into the ring, they say?
Well, I'm running because I see what a beautiful area we live in and how much opportunity there is here. So many hardworking folks. We've got beautiful universities around here. We've got 2- and 4-year institutions. I teach at Cornell. I sit on the board, the foundation board at Tompkins Cortland Community College. I know that we've got SUNY Broome and Binghamton University, SUNY Cortland. A lot of opportunity here, but unfortunately, John, what we see is that young folks grow up and leave because it is too expensive to live here. Property taxes are through the roof. There just isn't the job investment here that we'd like to see. And we need someone who's going to go to Albany and stand up and fight for us.
That is a very interesting question. Property taxes, of course, a huge issue. How do you address that?
Well, you got to actually get the work done. And a lot of people talk about cutting taxes. I know it's been part of Republican talking points for years is that we need to address the property taxes, but I sure don't see that getting done. There's a big difference between calling something out and taking real action on it. And that's what I bring to the table is a real plan for cutting our property taxes. Right now, property taxes are used in New York State for a purpose that they aren't used for anywhere else in the country. Nowhere else in the country do they use property taxes to pay for Medicaid.
Wow, yes.
And we need to change that unfunded mandate. It's killing us. It's making it so that young people can't buy a home. The challenges of people getting pushed out of the middle class, it's just too expensive to live here. So what I want to do is go to Albany and introduce legislation immediately that's going to cut property taxes in half by getting that huge Medicaid burden off the shoulders of our local taxpayers.
Who picks that up?
You pick it up through income taxes. And let me tell you, folks here in upstate New York are having to carry the burden for people on Wall Street who are not paying their fair share. Right now, we are taxed through the nose. We are paying higher taxes than anybody else in the country. And the reason is because we're having to pick up the taxes for the people who aren't paying their fair share. And that's the super wealthy folks in New York City and on Wall Street who simply aren't taxed like the rest of us are.
Following up on that, a lot of news about a lot of rich New Yorkers leaving the state because of our income tax.
Well, you know, it's actually not true. When you look at the billionaires, and we don't have a lot of billionaires here in Cortland County, but when you look at the billionaires who are not paying their fair share, they're actually not leaving. And we just had a big experiment in that in a lot of ways through the COVID pandemic. We saw that, you know, the very wealthy folks who have, you know, gorgeous penthouses in New York City, you know, on Wall Street and everything else, they maybe closed their penthouses for a couple of years during the pandemic, but they're coming back. And the reason they're coming back is because this is New York. Billionaires don't live in New York because it's a low tax state by any stretch. Billionaires live in New York because it's New York. And so, you know, we just had that experiment and we saw that actually you tax the folks at the very, very tippity top. And I'm not talking about, you know, your regular New Yorker. Again, we don't have folks like that here in Cortland County. We need to tax the folks who aren't paying their fair share.
We're visiting with Leslie Danks Burke, the Democrat, one of the 2 Democratic candidates for the state Senate in our new District 52. This all ties in, and I don't want to go off too far, but you know, inflation right now is a huge issue, as you mentioned, affordability, and I want to touch upon crime and bail reform, defunding the police.
Well, that's another one where I really call out my Republican opponents because I see the Republicans, like my opponent in this race, talking a whole lot about crime but not getting the job done. Take a city like Binghamton, where you see crime rates skyrocketing. And it is a real problem for a lot of folks living in a community where they do not feel safe. We need to address that. And my opponent, had 8 years on the ground as an executive, as mayor. He really had an opportunity to address it, and he did not get that job done. So when we see crime rates skyrocketing the way they are, when we see people talking a good game but not getting the work done, I'm going to call that out. We have been represented by Republican senators around here for a long time, and we are getting left behind.
What about, we talked a little before we went on the air, and we're starting to run out of time here, but the issue with farmers, I know the overtime pay is a big issue.
So my folks are farmers in Colorado, and I see what's happening to farmers across the country. They're getting shoved out by very large corporate interests that are buying up family farms and sending farmers into bankruptcy. And we see that same problem happening here in New York. When farmers, my parents have talked about the joke in farming is that you lose money every year and you make it up in the long term, and most farmers are still waiting for the long term. We can't wait any longer. We need to make sure that our farms are supported, that they have their property taxes cut, that they are given the opportunity to succeed in a way that we want to see our family farms succeed here, because otherwise they're going to get taken over by these huge corporate monopolies that are killing farmers all across the country.
One more quick one, and we're covering a lot of territory here, and it's always one of those not in my backyard. Solar power. I mean, we've got to go to green energy. Everybody talks about that. These solar projects, though, are concerning a lot of people.
Well, one of the things that I do not want to see is profitable and productive agricultural land taken offline for energy sources that we could certainly put elsewhere. We got a whole lot of parking lots that are empty. We've got a lot of retail that has gone under, big, huge malls that are no longer profitable with empty parking lots. I'd suggest that we take a look at those kinds of places for solar rather than putting profitable agricultural land off the grid.
You're pretty confident that you're going to win your primary on August 23rd?
I am working as hard as I can, and I've got a lot of confidence. I certainly don't take anything for granted, but I do know that my background, my real experience getting real solutions for real folks, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, I think that speaks to people. We need people who are going to hit the ground running and actually get results, and that's what I bring.
Our guest this morning on Meet Cortland County has been Leslie Danks-Burke, a Democratic candidate for the new 52nd New York State Senate District. And Leslie, I want to thank you very much for visiting us in Homer this morning.
Well, thank you so much for providing this information to the folks in Homer. I'm real excited to be here. Quick shout out to my friend Hal McCabe, who I supported.
Great mayor.
You're a great mayor, and he has done good things here for Homer, and I'm looking forward to amplifying that at the state level.
Very good. That's our edition of Meet Cortland County. We'll be back next week with another edition right here on X101. I'm John Eves.